All right, welcome to this week's Wowhead Weekly News Recap, and my goodness, we have a lot of news. As whenever we were looking at the roadmap that was presented pretty early on for this year for what 2024 was going to look like in Warcraft, one of the things that was interesting was the time-running Pandemonium. We obviously know that the 10.2.6 update with the Skull and Crossbones was Plunderstorm, and now the 10.2.7 update, which is Darkheart, has time-running Pandemonium, and this week we got a lot of news as to what time-running Pandemonium is. Basically, Warcraft tweeted out this thing where it was saying World of Warcraft Remix, Mists of Pandaria. It's a limited time event where you start fresh with a new character and play at an accelerated pace. You play through all quest scenarios, dungeons, and raids, unleash your true potential with mighty powers and loot, and collect account-wide cosmetics, new and old. And this has to do with Mists of Pandaria. They've released a massive blue post, and we have a lot of information. There's been a PTR that's available for testing as well for the time-running Pandemonium, and I had the ability to be able to go and test this on the PTR as well. And so we're going to talk about all the things that we've seen in the 10.2.7 update with the PTR, what all we've seen from data mining, and kind of what we expect to see with the Pandemonium just in general. So first and foremost, let's talk about what time-running Pandemonium is. Basically, I would describe it as a season of discovery season on retail where you're able to go back and play through Mists of Pandaria as if it was more or less current. It's kind of like WoW Classic for retail. It's rather strange to try to describe to people. You basically level to 70 using special rules and loot and much more. And let's talk about what was presented in this blue post. Now, it's a limited time event which will allow players to re-experience the entirety of Mists of Pandaria at an accelerated rate from level 10 through 70. All loot's been completely overhauled as powerful new effects, allowing players to shape their experience, power up and power on. You're going to be able to create a new remix character starting at level 10, gain a mountain of loot, and then get powerful items from everywhere. And this includes, dungeons, this includes world drops, this includes raids in some capacity, quests, chests, treasures, bosses, anything. There's also customizable items in the sense of like gems that you're able to socket, a lot of meta gems, tinker gems, those kind of things that will allow you to create interesting decisions as to what your character is going to be wearing tinker gem wise. You're also able to, I would describe it as decraft items, and you convert them into bronze, which can be used to upgrade items or purchase cosmetics. We're going to talk about all the cosmetics that we've seen because there have been just a ton. And there's even more that I would recommend going and reading on Wowhead to kind of check out and see, because there's just a ton of cosmetics that are related to this season. It's also available to everybody. Basically, no expansion purchase is needed. You don't have to have the current retail expansion in Dragonflight, but you do need a WoW subscription and game time to be able to begin this. This also means that classic players can participate in a plethora of Pandemonium by simply installing the live World of Warcraft client. This is kind of interesting to me. I think this is actually a good foray to allow classic players to kind of re-engage back in with the retail experience. It also says that WoW trial accounts will be able to experience the WoW Remix without a subscription or game time throughout level 70. And what you're going to be able to see is, it's actually what you're going to be doing while you're playing through this is very interesting. So first and foremost, there are going to be scenarios, there's going to be leveling zones, and as you level up, you're going to be able to engage with things such as different raids, different dungeons, and that kind of stuff. And then you're going to be able to go up on difficulties as well. As for raid size stuff, for Remix, it's mostly 10. There's 25 players, which is LFR raid size, but a lot of it's 10. And then Siege of Orgrimmar, which is available on Mythic, is going to be a 20-player raid. And so basically, a lot of these raids are, you're going to be leveling through the raids, you're going to be leveling through the dungeons, you're going to be leveling through the zones. And then as you get to level 70, then you're going to unlock Heroic and Mythic Siege of Orgrimmar to be able to play through that. And we've actually seen a lot of people doing some different stuff. And we're going to talk about like what we've seen after we kind of go through what the specifics are for this. Basically, you're going to create a new character, a modern character. So for those who thought that this was going to be Mists of Pandaria character design, that's not correct. You're going to be creating a Dragonflight level character, including the ability to be able to play Demon Hunter and Evoker. And then you're going to be able to collect, items and transmogs, and you're going to take the transmogs with you into the War Within. A lot of the mogs are bind on account. This seems like in lieu of war banding the mogs, they're going to have a lot of the mogs be BOA. That means that you don't have to make one character of each armor type. On top of that, all remix characters created during the event will be converted to a standard character to play within modern World of Warcraft at the end of the event. So if you want to level alts, this is going to be pretty exceptional for you. The leveling is also specifically supposed to be pretty fast. We're going to talk about that in a second, but the leveling isn't supposed to be like very long or tedious or similar to, you know, classic whenever it launched. It should be rather quick for you to be able to level, and if you want to level multiple characters during the remix event, it's going to be even faster. From the Realm character select screen, players will be able to be given the option to create a new WoW remix character beginning at level 10, which will only be able to play with characters taking part in the event. I think this might have to do with like phasing and layering as to how it's going to work. So basically, for your character, you make a character on your server, you then select a remix option to put that character into the remix, and then you start in the Mists of Pandaria zone and you start leveling through that. Whenever you create these remix characters, you're only able to participate in the remix event until the War Within comes out. Then you're going to be able to, you know, the character is going to be transferred into a War Within, you know, level 70 character. As to what the gear is going to look like as it's converted into max level gear, we don't really know yet, but that's kind of something that you should be looking at. There's also going to be okay, so talking about the gems and the sockets, there's new customizable items that will be used for the taking, and each slot has their own unique identity with spell gem sockets, and these sockets come with exciting turbocharge effects similar to trinkets. And this is to try to keep the gameplay interesting, so it's not just your class, but there's also interesting gem combinations that you're going to be able to come up with, and these gem effects I would describe them as like special effects gems. You know, we can read some of these. Summon a storm, call down 5 bolts of lightning every 1 second. Each bolt inflicts 25,000 nature damage. And this would be like an on-use effect. Transform into a thundering orb, inflicting nature damage to enemies within 30 yards over 4 seconds. While you're in orb, damage taken is reduced by 50%, movement speed is reduced by 70%, and you're moved to loss of control effects. And this creates a really interesting decision as to like what gems you're going to be putting on your character. I suspect that there's going to be some min-maxing with this. But by and large, it's just kind of there to kind of keep it fresh, and you're not only playing your character. Now, there is a question as to what's going to be up with the tier sets. What are they going to be doing with tier acquisition? Because playing through some of these raids, there was tier that dropped, right? Like through, you know, Throne of Thunder or whatever, that actually had tier that was available for players to be able to access. It's not very clear as to what's going to be happening with the tier yet. But that's definitely something that you have to work out with. There's also going to be a cloak. So if you played Mists of Pandaria whenever it was current, you probably remember that there was a legendary cloak. Now this is going to be a slightly different cloak. You're going to be able to earn an artifact cloak that gains permanent power, increases as you play the game, and then the power that you gain on your strongest character is shared with alt characters created for event to make the leveling faster. And so it's called the Cloak of Infinite Potential, and it has a buff called Time Runner's Advantage. The stats on the cloak, again, as you level up and you gain more power, the following stats are, you know, strength, stamina, crit strike, leech, mastery, versatility, and experience gain. But then as you gain more of these stats, then it's also going to increase your alt character stats. And so whenever you want to level more characters, or if you want to level more characters, it's going to be able to allow you to, you know, level a lot of characters fast. I personally am having a problem. Do I really want a second druid? Like, what character do I want to play for the mop remix for the time running? It's like, do I want to play something that's like brand new to me, or do I really want like a second druid on my realm? And so I'm having a personal dilemma as to what I'm going to do necessarily with that. There's also a lot of cool rewards, and you know, this is a recolor of the challenge mode Phoenix for all gold CMs. This is part of one of the reward packages for this event that you can buy with bronze. There's also a golden celestial that you can buy as well, and we're going to talk about a lot of the stuff too. And the final thing that's on this blue post is welcome to a new Bronze Age. And there's no such thing as a bad drop, and any drop that you get can be converted into a currency called bronze. You can use this currency to purchase upgrades and World of Warcraft account bound cosmetics, kind of like the mogs and stuff like that we were talking about earlier. And if you head to any bazaar in a zone, you can purchase everything from class transmogs to Mists of Pandaria mounts, toys, and more. This allows players to purchase items that were previously unable to be obtained or difficult to obtain as random drops by simply spending this new currency and adding them to the account's collection. There's also no auction house, and there's a bunch of different stuff that you're going to be doing with no auction house setup. So let's talk about the rewards that we're going to see from this. There's a lot of mounts, and as you can see right here, there are just a ton of mounts. A lot of them are new to the remix event. There's some old that are being brought back, such as, you know, Primordial Diehorn, Astral Cloud Serpent, Spawn of Horadon, the Undasta mount, stuff like that, that are being brought back for the event. All right, so let's take a look at some of the mounts. Obviously, we saw the golden celestial cloud serpent. There's also some crane recolors. I think this purple crane recolor is my personal favorite. This thing looks sick. There's also this pink crane, multiple pink cranes. There's some disc mounts as well. Goats. Not huge into the goats. I think the juggernauts are so sick, bringing back the juggernauts. Kites. You have the galleon-alike mounts, the Phoenix that we talked about earlier, which is the Reigns of the August Phoenix, which is a recolor of the challenge mode gear, pterodactyls, and that kind of stuff. So there's going to be just a boatload of rewards, a boatload of MOG, a ton of different stuff that's available as well. But there was a question as to what's going to happen with the challenge mode sets. Were the challenge mode sets going to be brought back in the remix? And Blizzard answered this for the time running Pandemonium question. No challenge mode sets are going to be turning. Let me find exactly what they said about this. Okay, so items that were only available during the original release of Mists of Pandaria will not be available in this event. This includes the Kor'kron Werewolf challenge mode sets and heirlooms. On the other hand, rare drops that are available in Dragonflight today, such as the Son of Galleon mount or the Astral Cloud Serpent, will drop in Remix and can be purchased by Remix characters using the bronze currency. And we kind of saw this earlier. I would say that this is maybe a bit of a miss. They could have even gone with like a recolor of the challenge mode sets, and I think that would have been really cool to, just kind of get people back into the Remix event. But with the challenge mode sets not returning, I think that's kind of a miss on their end. They should have probably have gone through and done that. We've also data mined a decent amount of other interesting stuff, such as there's this Murloc onesie. I think that this looks absolutely ridiculous, but I'm in love with it as well. There's also, so since Legendary Cloak was an item that you would wear whenever Pandaria was current, and we were going to be wearing a different cloak this time, Blizzard went ahead and added some toys to the game that once you get max level and you upgrade your Cloak of Infinite Potential to max level, you're going to be able to acquire new toys. And these toys give you the spell effects from the previous Mists of Pandaria cloak for 8 hours. And I think that the 8-hour occasionally don the wings of News Hour over the next 8 hours, I think that's so sick. Especially like this Yulon one, I think it looks so cool. And so, again, this is a lot of improvements for time running. That's kind of what we expect time running to look like. It's a lot of you're going to be getting new effects via gems. You're going to be able to get a lot of rewards such as MOG. You're going to be able to get a lot of mounts and collectibles. I think it's like a collectibles dream. You're going to be able to progress through raids. I don't expect it to be like that challenging of raids. We've seen some players getting pretty fast level. As it currently stands, it seems like there's a bug on the PTR where players are able to level through LFR without loot lockouts. That seems like that's unintended, where it seems likely that loot lockouts should likely exist. But as it currently stands, some people were doing the first boss of Mogushan vaults, AoEing down all of this trash, as you see on screen here, able to get just a ton of experience for it. They zone out, they get the loot from the first boss, and then they redo it again over and over again. I kind of expect this to change, where you're not going to be doing LFR like this to power level. That seems like a slightly quick oversight, but this is like super cool. I think that being able to do LFR at level 20, go and do Mogushan vaults and stuff like that, it's going to be really, really interesting. But it's available for testing on the 10.2.7 PTR. If you really want, I would go ahead and give it a look at. As for other 10.2.7 stuff that we've seen, most of this is going to end up applying to Season 4. I guess let's first talk about trinket tuning. Blizzard buffed and nerfed a couple of trinkets in regards to Season 4. Call to Chaos and Call to Dominance both getting a slight nerf. Chill Globe and Rashok's Molten Heart getting re-mana adjustments. We also had the Dragonfire Bomb Dispenser, which was doing a ridiculous amount of damage on the PTR. Manic Grief Torch getting a slight buff. That and Puzzle Box, Beacon to the Beyond, and Belorelos now have a 1-second GCD, and this actually got hotfixed in Alive, where players were doing weird stuff with like dead globals to eat that. Then you also have Rage Heart, damage being reduced by 5%, Storm Eater's Boon being reduced by 25%. Personally, if you never were Storm Eater's Boon in a Mythic Plus dungeon that I'm in with you, I would be happy. I think that this trinket is really hard to use effectively. And then the most unsurprising nerf of all time, Whispering Incarnate Icon getting a slight nerf as well. Other 10.2.7 news is that we have Mythic Plus and LFG improvements for 10.2.7. So in regards to remix. This is completely unrelated. This is different 10.2.7 stuff. I think that let's talk about the UI and accessibility changes that they're going for with the 10.2.7. Several changes have been made to improve the experience of finding Mythic Plus groups in the pre-made group finder. A filter button has been added that lets you filter results for specific dungeons, your role available, none of your class already in the group, tank and or healer already in the group, minimum Mythic Plus rating of the leader, and difficulty. And so a lot of these are going to come down to things that were already previously achieved via WeCore and add-ons, but now they're adding them as default items into the base game, which I think is going to be sick. Where the role icons on each listing now show class colors, so you can use the current group. You can tell what the current group makeup is at a glance. It's going to be a lot easier to tell, oh my gosh, do they already have a DPS Death Knight? Oh my gosh, do they already have a heal? Like, I guess healer doesn't make sense. But like a DPS Death Knight in the group and stuff like that. The listing tooltip now shows the leader's information in a more readable format. Their Mythic Plus rating, their highest key list for the listed dungeon, and their highest key for all the dungeons. This was something that was already achieved previously by like a Raider IO add-on, but again, this is something that's being consolidated just now into the base game. There's also going to be able to a help tip tutorial has been added to teach players that they can search a key range for precise results. For example, 6 through 10 or 7 through 7. This was already in the game, but it wasn't like super clear that you could use it like this. Groups that no longer fit your filter criteria are also marked with a red background. For example, if you selected damage role available and a listed group filled up on damage dealers, it would be marked with red. Groups you're hard to decline for are automatically marked in red and sorted to the bottom. This is good. This is good, especially if you're the person who's making the group, so that way that person that you're declining won't continue to queue up over and over again. And in the leader applicants pane, the applicant tooltip now will also show the applicant's info in a more readable format. Their Mythic Plus rating, their highest key for the listed dungeon, and their highest key for all dungeons will be shown. There's also been options to be added for auction house filters to show current expansion items. The location of dragon riding races can now also be toggled in the map filter, and a bunch of other UI and UX improvements just as a whole. I think that these are all super sick. That Blizzard's continuing to improve their UI and their user experience, their user interface. Obviously, the UI is not perfect. People have been talking about add-ons a lot lately, but just as a whole, I think that, you know, improving LFG, which is such a miserable experience for so many people, that's going to be awesome. Beyond that, there's not too much else. This ended up being about a 20-minute video. Again, go test Timerunning Pandemonium. There's a lot of, you know, mods and mounts and stuff like that that's going to be available for testing. Again, I would describe it as like a season of discovery season where you're going to be able to play back through Mists of Pandaria. You could just wait and play it whenever it's current to not spoil it for yourself as well. I do completely understand that. And that's it for us today. I will see you guys in the next video, and I hope you guys have a great one. Goodbye.